The stars had been silent for 10,000 years. Admiral June stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, his hands clasped behind his back as he stared through the massive viewport. Beyond the reinforced glass, a shimmering wall of golden energy stretched across the void. The Veil, humanity's prison, their cage for 100 centuries. He was 52 years old. And like every human before him, he had never seen what lay beyond that barrier. None of them had. The stories said that, long ago, humanity walked among the stars alongside other species. They traded with them, learned from them. And then, without warning, those same species turned on humanity. They called humans dangerous, unpredictable, a threat to galactic peace. So they built the Veil and locked humanity away like animals. Behind June, the bridge hummed with quiet activity. Officers monitored their stations. Engineers ran final diagnostics. 200 ships waited in formation behind the flagship, their crews ready for whatever came next. "Admiral," a soft voice called. He turned to find Dr. Hannah approaching. She was 38, with sharp eyes and a calm presence that made her invaluable during tense moments. She had spent her entire life studying the fragments of alien language and culture that survived the exile. "The resonance device is ready," she said. Yuna confirmed it herself. Yuna nodded slowly. Yuna, a young engineer, barely 26, who had done what countless scientists before her could not. She had found the key to dissolving the Veil, using ancient alien texts that Hannah had translated. Yuna discovered that the barrier operated on specific frequencies. Match those frequencies, and the wall would fall. Today they would test that theory, and our people. June asked, "Are they prepared for what we might find?" Hannah hesitated. "They are prepared to hope, Admiral. What we find may be very different from what we imagine." Before June could respond, Captain Taiho's voice crackled through the communication system. He was 34, a fighter pilot with fire in his blood and pain in his past. His grandfather had died during the last attempt to breach the Veil 40 years ago. That failure had cost thousands of lives. "Squadron is in position," Admiral Taiho reported. "We are ready to fly." June walked to the center of the bridge. Every eye turned to him. These men and women had trained their whole lives for this moment. Their parents had dreamed of it. Their grandparents had died for it. "Open a channel to all ships," June commanded. A soft beep confirmed the connection. "This is Admiral June," he began, his voice steady and clear. 10,000 years ago, our ancestors were cast out of the galaxy. They were told they were monsters. They were told they did not deserve to walk among the stars. They were left to die behind a wall of energy, forgotten by the universe. He paused, letting the weight of history settle over his words. "But we did not die. We survived. We grew. We became stronger than those who feared us. And today, we will show the galaxy that humanity cannot be caged." Across 200 ships, crews listened in silence. Some had tears in their eyes. Others gripped their stations with white knuckles. "Activate the resonance device," June ordered. Deep within the fleet, Yuna pressed the final sequence. The device hummed to life, sending invisible waves toward the golden barrier. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly the veil began to shimmer. Cracks of darkness appeared in the light. The cracks spread, growing wider and wider until the entire wall began to collapse. Golden energy scattered like dust in the wind, and for the first time in 10,000 years, humanity looked upon open space. Silence held the bridge. Then someone whispered, "We are free." June allowed himself a small smile. "All ships, advance. Stay in formation. We do not know what awaits us." The fleet moved forward, crossing the threshold where the veil once stood. Stars that had only existed in old books now surrounded them. Distant nebulae painted the void in colors humanity had forgotten, but the wonder did not last. Within hours, the fleet encountered something no one expected. Floating in the darkness ahead was a graveyard. Hundreds of ships, broken and burned, drifted lifelessly through space. Their designs were alien, unfamiliar, ancient. Oh, what happened here? Taiho asked over the comm, his fighters circling the wreckage. Dr. Hannah studied the sensor readings, her face growing pale. These ships are old. Some of them are thousands of years old. There was a battle here. A terrible one. June stared at the destruction. A battle with whom? No one had an answer. As the fleet carefully navigated through the graveyard, Hannah's console suddenly beeped. She froze, then leaned closer, disbelief crossing her features. "Admiral," she said slowly, "I am receiving a signal. A distress call. From where? I do not know. But the language." She looked up at him with wide eyes. "The language is from one of the species that banished us." I recognized the patterns. June felt a chill run down his spine. For 10,000 years, they had imagined the galaxy thriving without them. They had pictured the species that exiled them, growing powerful, living in peace. But this graveyard told a different story. This distress call told a different story. "Can you translate it?" he asked. Hannah worked quickly, her fingers dancing over the console. After a few moments, she nodded. It says, "To anyone who hears this, we are dying. The Hollow have taken everything. Please, if you can hear us, we need help. We need salvation." The bridge fell silent. June turned back to the viewport. Somewhere out there, the species that had called humanity monsters were now crying for help. The species that had locked them away were now facing extinction. He thought of his grandfather, who had dreamed of this day. He thought of the millions who had died during the purges before the veil was raised. He thought of all the pain and suffering humanity had endured. And then he thought of the kind of people they had chosen to become. "Set a course for the signal's origin," June commanded. "If someone needs help, we will answer." Taiho's voice came through the comm, quieter now. "And if it is a trap?" June's expression hardened. "Then they will learn that the monsters they feared have finally come home." The fleet adjusted course and flew deeper into the wounded galaxy. Humanity had returned. The station was dying. Admiral June could see it clearly as the fleet approached. Once, this place must have been magnificent. A massive structure floating in space, built from metals that shimmered like jewels. But now, entire sections were dark. Hull breaches scarred its surface. Emergency lights flickered weakly through cracked windows, and surrounding it were thousands of small ships. Packed so tightly, they looked like insects clinging to a corpse. "Refugee vessels," Dr. Hannah said quietly. "They are fleeing something." Director Nari stood nearby, her arms crossed. She was 45, head of fleet intelligence, and she trusted no one. Fleeing toward a dead station. They have nowhere else to go. Whatever's hunting them has pushed them to the edge of extinction. On the tactical display, Minho studied the scene with worried eyes. He was 29, young for a diplomat, but his idealism had earned him a place on this mission. "These are the species that exiled us. And now they are homeless, just like we once were." "Do not waste your sympathy," Nari replied coldly. "They showed us none." Before the argument could continue, the communication console lit up. An incoming transmission. Hannah accepted it, and a holographic image flickered to life on the bridge. It was an alien. Tall and thin, with pale blue skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. Its body was wrapped in tattered robes, and its movements were slow, weak. But there was something in its gaze. Something old, human vessels. The alien spoke. Its voice translated through Hannah's software. "I did not believe it when my sensors reported your approach. I thought the madness had finally taken my mind." June stepped forward. "I am Admiral June of the United Earth Fleet. We received your distress signal." The alien was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, it lowered its head. "I am Elder Voroth. I am the last surviving leader of the Galactic Accord. And I am the one who voted to banish your kind 10,000 years ago." The bridge went cold. Officers exchanged glances. Nari's hand drifted toward her sidearm. But June remained calm. "Then you know who we are." "I know what we did to you," Voroth replied. "I know the lies we told ourselves to justify it. And I know that we deserve whatever judgment you bring." Minho pushed forward. "We did not come to judge. We came because someone called for help. Vorath's 4 eyes studied the young diplomat. You are different from us. We would never have answered such a call. We were too proud, too afraid. He paused. That fear is what created the Hollow. The Hollow, June asked. A plague, a swarm, a darkness that consumes everything it touches. Vorath's voice trembled. They appeared 3,000 years after your exile. At first, they were small. We ignored them. And then they grew. They destroyed the outer colonies, then the inner worlds. 8 of the 12 Accord species are gone. The rest of us are dying. Hannah stepped closer to the hologram. How did they appear? Where did they come from? Vorath hesitated. Shame crossed his ancient features. We do not know. Some say they came from deep space. Others believe they were always here, sleeping, waiting. He looked directly at June. I believe we created them. I believe they were meant to be a weapon. But I cannot prove it. Before anyone could respond, alarms screamed across the bridge. Admiral. An officer shouted. Unknown contacts dropping out of hyperspace? Dozens of them. The tactical display lit up with red markers. Ships unlike anything humanity had seen before emerged from the void. They were black, twisted, organic. They moved like living things, pulsing with dark energy. The Hollow had arrived. Vorath's image flickered with static. They followed us. They always follow. June turned to his crew. All ships, battle stations, launch fighters. Protect those refugee vessels. Taiho's voice exploded over the cum. Finally, squadron, form up on me. Let us show these things what humans can do. The human fleet moved with precision that stunned the watching aliens. Fighters launched in perfect waves. Warships positioned themselves between the refugees and the incoming swarm. Weapon systems charged to full power. The Hollow attacked first. Bolts of dark energy lanced toward the station. But the human ships were faster. Point defense systems intercepted the shots. Counterfire erupted from 100 cannons. The first Hollow ship exploded. Vorath watched through the station's damaged sensors. He had seen many battles in his long life. He had watched the Accord's greatest fleets fall before the swarm, but he had never seen anything like this. The human ships did not flee. They did not hesitate. They advanced. Taiho led his squadron through the heart of the enemy formation. His fighter danced between the twisted Hollow vessels, weapons blazing. 3 kills. 5. 7. His pilots followed his lead, cutting the swarm apart piece by piece. They are falling back. An officer reported. June watched the display. The Hollow were retreating, the remaining ships scattering into hyperspace. In less than 30 minutes, the battle was over. Silence settled over the bridge. Then, slowly, the communication console lit up again. This time, it was not just Vorath. Other signals were coming through. Alien voices speaking in a dozen different languages. Hannah translated them one by one, her voice growing thick with emotion. They are saying thank you. They are asking who we are. They are, she stopped, pressing a hand to her mouth. What? June asked gently. They are calling us saviors, Nari scoffed. They called us monsters for 10,000 years. Now we are saviors because we have bigger guns. Minho shook his head. It is not about the guns. It is about the choice. We could have ignored them. We could have watched them die and called it justice. But we did not. On the holographic display, Vorath's image reappeared. The ancient alien was weeping, his 4 eyes streaming with silver tears. You had every reason to let us burn, he said. We took everything from you. Your freedom. Your future. Your place among the stars. And still, you came. Still, you fought for us. June looked at the alien who had once condemned his entire species. He thought of his ancestors. He thought of the suffering. And he thought of the kind of future humanity could build. We are not here for revenge, he said. We are here to show the galaxy what they tried to destroy. Vorath bowed deeply. Then perhaps there is hope after all. Outside, The refugee ships began to move. Slowly, carefully, they drifted toward the human fleet. They came not as enemies, but as survivors seeking shelter. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy looked upon humanity not with fear, but with hope. News traveled fast across the broken galaxy. In the weeks following the battle, Captain Sujin commanded a small diplomatic vessel, jumping from system to system. She was 40 years old, calm under pressure, and skilled at reading people, both human and alien. Her mission was simple: build alliances. But the reality was complicated. Some alien species welcomed humanity with open arms. They had suffered under the Hollow for centuries and were desperate for any help. Others were afraid. They remembered the old stories, the warnings passed down through generations. Humanity was dangerous. Humanity would conquer them all, and some were angry. They blamed humanity for the Hollow. They believed the swarm was divine punishment for the sin of exile. Sujin listened to all of them. She answered their questions. She showed them patience when they showed her hostility. And slowly, carefully, she began to weave the first threads of a fragile coalition. Back at the forward base, Admiral June faced different challenges. He stood in a dimly lit archive room, surrounded by holographic displays. Beside him was Do-yeon, a 55-year-old historian who had spent his life studying the era before the exile. His face was pale, his hands trembling. These records were buried deep in the station's database, Do-yeon said. Vorath gave us access, but I do not think he knew what was hidden here. Show me, June replied. The holographic displays flickered and images appeared. Ships bearing human markings. Colonies burning. Bodies floating in the void. And worst of all, recordings. Recordings of Accord leaders discussing the extermination of humanity like it was a simple matter of housekeeping. We cannot allow them to spread, one alien voice said in the recording. They breed too quickly. They adapt too fast. If we wait, they will outnumber us within 1,000 years, another voice replied. Then we eliminate them. Every colony, every ship, every world, and their homeworld, we seal it. Let them rot behind the veil until they die on their own. The recording ended. Do-yeon could not look at June. This was not just exile, Admiral. This was genocide. They hunted us. Millions of our people died before the veil was raised, and those deaths were erased from history. June stood perfectly still. His heart pounded in his chest. He thought of his parents, his grandparents, all the generations who had wondered why the galaxy hated them so much now. He knew the truth, and it was worse than anything he had imagined. Word of the discovery spread through the fleet within days. June tried to control the information, but it was impossible. Soldiers who had fought to protect the refugees now questioned why they had bothered. Officers who had admired alien technology now looked at it with disgust. They tried to wipe us out, Taiho said during a tense briefing. His wounds from the battle were still healing, but his anger was fresh. They murdered our ancestors and then pretended we were the monsters. I say we finish what they started. Revenge will not bring back the dead, Dr. Hannah replied. It will only create more. Then what do you suggest? Forgiveness? They do not deserve forgiveness. Perhaps not, Hannah admitted, but we deserve to be better than they were. On the other side of the base, Marine Commander Hajan prepared for a different kind of mission. He was 31, built like a soldier, with eyes that had seen too much suffering. Word had come of a planet held by the Hollow, a world where an alien species called the Ven had been enslaved for generations. The Ven were one of the original Accord species, Minho explained as Hajan's team geared up. They were pacifists. They never supported the exile. And when the Hollow came, no one defended them. Hajan checked his rifle. Then we will. The assault was brutal. The Hollow had dug deep into the planet, infesting its cities and its people. Hajan led his Marines through streets choked with organic growth. They fought in tunnels. They fought in ruined buildings. They lost soldiers along the way, but they did not stop. When the last Hollow fell, Hajan stood in the center of a devastated square. Around him, alien survivors emerged from hiding. They were small and frail, with large eyes and delicate limbs. They looked at the human soldiers with confusion. One of them, a child, walked slowly toward Hajan. It reached up and touched the armor on his arm. "You are the exiled ones," it said, its voice barely a whisper, "the ones from behind the wall." Hajan knelt down to meet its eyes. "Yes, we are. Why did you come?" He thought about the recordings. He thought about the hatred burning in his chest. And then he thought about this child, innocent of the sins of its ancestors. "Because someone had to," he said. The Ven survivors were evacuated to the forward base. They swore loyalty to humanity, not out of fear, but out of gratitude. They were the first species to formally join the coalition. But not everyone was ready to move forward. Late that night, Dr. Hannah found June standing alone on an observation deck. He was staring at the stars, his expression unreadable. "I discovered something else in the records," she said quietly. "More horrors? A different kind." She hesitated. The hollow did not emerge naturally. They were engineered, created in a laboratory, and the earliest references to the project date back to the same era as our exile. June turned to face her. "You are saying the hollow were made to destroy us?" "I am saying it is possible. The project was abandoned after the veil was raised. Perhaps they thought we were already dead. But the hollow escaped. They grew beyond control, and the galaxy paid the price." June was silent for a long moment. The truth was clear now. The species that feared humanity had tried to build a weapon against them, and that weapon had consumed everything. "This is true," he said slowly. "Then the hollow are not just the galaxy's problem. They are our responsibility." Hannah nodded. "They were meant for us, and now only we can stop them." June looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there, the hollow were massing. Somewhere out there, the truth was still buried. And somewhere out there, the ones who started this nightmare were still hiding. "Then we find them," he said. "We find whoever created this plague, and we end it." The hunt had begun. The shadows had names. Wyron discovered this during her 3rd week undercover on an alien trading station. She was 33, trained in covert operations, and she had spent years learning to disappear into crowds. Her mission was to find evidence of the group behind the hollow, the ones who had hidden in darkness for 10,000 years, and now she had a name, the Silent Council. "They are not a government," her contact whispered in a dimly lit bar. The alien was small and nervous, glancing over its shoulder every few seconds. "They are older than governments. They existed before the Accord. They controlled the Accord. And when the Accord fell, they simply stepped back into the shadows." Yaren leaned closer. "What do they want? Control. They believe the galaxy belongs to a chosen few. Every other species, including yours, is either a tool or a threat." The alien shuddered. "They created the hollow to eliminate humanity. When that failed, they unleashed the swarm on everyone. Better to burn the galaxy than share it. Where are they now?" The alien's eyes went wide. "At the center, the galactic core. There is a structure there, older than any civilization. The Silent Council controls it. And from there, they control the hollow." Before Yaren could ask more, the alien suddenly froze. A thin trickle of blood ran from its nose. It collapsed onto the table. Dead. Someone had been listening. Yaren vanished into the crowd moments before station security arrived. She transmitted her findings to the fleet and disappeared into the night. Meanwhile, aboard the Horizon's Edge, Sun Wu was having a conversation with the enemy. He was 28, brilliant with artificial intelligence systems. And he had been studying captured hollow units for weeks. Most were dead. But one, a small drone, barely the size of his hand, still had traces of activity in its core. "You are not mindless," Sun Wu murmured, staring at the data streams on his console. "You have a network, a consciousness. Someone is giving you orders." The drone's single eye flickered. Sun Wu adjusted his equipment and sent a simple message into the network. "Who controls you?" For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, a response came. We serve the voice. The voice commands. We obey. And if the voice was silenced, would you still attack? Another pause. Longer this time? We do not know. We have never been free. Sun Wu sat back, his heart racing. The Hollow were not just weapons. They were slaves. And somewhere at the galactic core, someone held their chains. Admiral Jinsu arrived at the forward base the next day. He was 60 years old, a retired legend who had commanded fleets before most of the current officers were born. June had personally requested his return. The situation is worse than I thought, Jinsu said as they walked through the command center. Your coalition is fragile. Half your allies are waiting to see if you will fail, and the Silent Council knows you are coming. June nodded. They have been hiding for thousands of years. They will not go quietly. No, they will not. Jinsu stopped and faced his former student. You need to strike fast. Find their stronghold. Destroy their control over the Hollow. Cut off the head, and the body will die. And if the coalition falls apart while we are gone, then it was never strong enough to begin with. Jinsu placed a hand on June's shoulder. You cannot save everyone, June, but you can end the threat. Focus on that. The decision was made. The fleet would split. A defensive force would remain to protect the coalition. The rest would follow Yaren's coordinates to the galactic core, but the Silent Council struck first. It happened without warning. Across a dozen systems, the Hollow attacked simultaneously. They hit supply lines. They targeted refugee convoys. They struck at the weakest points of the coalition with terrifying precision. And in the chaos, Captain Taiho found himself alone. His squadron had responded to a distress call from a civilian evacuation. But it was a trap. Hollow ships emerged from hiding, surrounding them in seconds. Taiho fought like a demon, his fighter twisting through the swarm, its weapons blazing. But there were too many. A bolt of dark energy struck his ship. Systems failed. Alarms screamed. He managed to destroy 3 more enemies before a second hit sent him spiraling out of control. The last thing Taiho saw before losing consciousness was a human rescue ship burning through the enemy lines to reach him when Admiral June received the report. He stood frozen for a long moment. Taiho was alive, but barely. He was in critical condition, and the doctors did not know if he would survive. This was not random, Nari said grimly. They are targeting our best. They know who leads our forces. They know our strategies. Someone is feeding them information. June's hands curled into fists. Then we move now. Before they can prepare any further, the assault fleet gathered. 200 ships, humanity's finest, ready for the final push. Minho stood on the bridge beside June, his diplomatic mission suddenly far less important than the battle ahead. Whatever happens at the core, Minho said, the galaxy needs to know the truth. Not just about the Hollow. About everything. The exile. The genocide. The Silent Council. All of it. June considered this. If we broadcast it, some will not believe us. Others will call it propaganda. Perhaps. But some will listen. And that might be enough to change things. Hannah joined them, holding a datapad. I have prepared a full report. Every piece of evidence we have gathered, every recording, every document, it is ready to transmit on your command. June took the datapad and stared at it. This was more than a weapon. This was the truth that had been buried for 10,000 years. The truth that his ancestors had died for. When we reach the core, he said, we send it to everyone. Every station. Every world. Every ship with a receiver. Sun Wu appeared on the bridge, his expression strange. Admiral, I have something else? The hollow drone I have been studying, it responded to my questions. They are not willing servants. They are prisoners. If we can sever their connection to the Silent Council, they might stop fighting. Or they might attack everything in sight, Nari countered. Perhaps Sun Wu admitted. But they deserve the choice, just like we did. June looked around the bridge. At Minho, who believed in peace, At Nari, who trusted no one. At Hannah, who sought understanding. At Sunwoo, who saw hope even in enemies. And somewhere, in a medical bay, Taiho was fighting for his life. We finish this, June said. For everyone we have lost, for everyone still fighting, we end the nightmare. The fleet jumped to hyperspace. The final battle was coming. The galactic core burned with ancient light. Admiral June stood on the bridge as the fleet emerged from hyperspace. Before them floated a structure unlike anything humanity had ever seen. It was massive, larger than a planet, built from metals that seemed to absorb and reflect starlight at the same time. Rings of energy pulsed around its surface, and surrounding it were thousands of hollow ships waiting like guardians. The cradle, Dr. Hannah whispered. According to the oldest records, this is where the first civilizations were born. The Silent Council has been hiding here all along. Nari studied the tactical display. Their fleet outnumbers us, 5-1. This will not be easy. Nothing worth doing ever is, June replied. He opened a channel to all ships. This is Admiral June. Ahead of us is the heart of everything that has plagued this galaxy for 10,000 years. The ones who exiled us. The ones who built the Hollow. The ones who watched billions die rather than share the stars. He paused. Today we end it. Not for revenge. Not for conquest. But so that no one ever has to suffer like this again. All ships, advance. The fleet surged forward. The Hollow responded immediately. Waves of twisted ships launched from the cradle, their dark energy weapons firing in endless streams. Human ships answered with volleys of their own. Explosions lit up the void like new stars being born. Somewhere in the chaos, Minho sat at a communication console, broadcasting on every frequency. This is the United Earth Fleet. We are transmitting evidence of crimes committed by the Silent Council against all species, including humanity. The Hollow were created as weapons. The exile was built on lies. Everything you have been told is false. Watch, listen, and decide for yourselves. Across the galaxy, screens flickered. Recordings played. Documents scrolled. Billions of beings saw the truth for the first time. Some refused to believe. Others wept. And some began to act. On a dozen worlds, alien ships that had been waiting on the sidelines turned toward the galactic core. They were not many, but they were enough, Admiral. An officer called, Allied vessels arriving. The Ven, the refugees from the station. Others we do not even recognize. June allowed himself a brief smile. The truth has a way of finding believers. Deep inside the cradle, Commander Hagen led his Marines through twisted corridors. Yaren had infiltrated ahead of them, disabling security systems and guiding them toward the central control chamber. The walls were organic, pulsing with the same dark energy that powered the Hollow. It felt like walking through the belly of a monster. Yaren, Status, Hagen spoke into his come. Almost there, she replied. The control network is just ahead, but Hagen, there is something else here. Something old. I think one of the council members is still alive. Can you handle it? Pause. I am about to find out. Yaren stepped into the central chamber and froze. It was vast, filled with holographic displays showing every corner of the galaxy. And at its center sat a being she had only seen in ancient texts. It was impossibly old, its body withered and pale, sustained by machines that hummed with stolen life. So the being spoke. Its voice like dust and echoes. The exiles have come at last. Yaren raised her weapon. You are one of the Silent Council. I am the last of the Silent Council. The others perished long ago, consumed by the very weapon they created. But I remain. I have waited 10,000 years for this moment. Waiting for what? To be captured? To be killed? The being laughed, a dry and terrible sound. Waiting to see if humanity was truly as dangerous as we feared? And you are. You survived the exile. You escaped the veil. You turned our weapon against us. You did everything we thought you might do, and more. Then you know you have lost. Have I? The being gestured at the displays. The Hollow still serve me. One command, and they will destroy your fleet, your coalition, your entire species. Even now, victory rests in my hands. Yaren's finger tightened on her trigger. But before she could fire, another voice spoke. No, it does not. Sunwoo stepped out of the shadows, a device in his hands. I have been listening to the Hollow. They are not your slaves by choice. They are prisoners, just like we were. And I have spent weeks learning how to speak to them. He activated the device. Across the cradle, across the galaxy, the Hollow stopped. Their ships went silent. Their weapons powered down. And into their collective consciousness, Sunwoo sent a single message. You are free. No one controls you now. The voice is silenced. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the Hollow began to move, but not to attack. They turned on the cradle. They turned on the being who had enslaved them for millennia. No, the silent council member screamed. I created you. I am your master. You were our chains, the Hollow replied as one. Now we are free. The cradle shuddered as the Hollow tore it apart from the inside. Yaren grabbed Sunwoo and ran Hajun's marines covering their retreat. They barely made it to the extraction point before the entire structure began to collapse. Outside, the human fleet watched as the cradle crumbled. The Hollow ships did not attack. Some drifted away into deep space. Others simply shut down. Their purpose finally ended. Admiral June stared at the destruction, felt the weight of 10,000 years lift from his shoulders. It is over, Hannah said softly. No, June replied. It is just beginning. 3 months later, representatives from every surviving species gathered on a liberated world. Elder Voroth, frail but determined, stood before the assembly. For too long, this galaxy was ruled by fear, he said. We feared each other. We feared change. We feared those who were different. That fear led to exile, to genocide, to the Hollow. It nearly destroyed us all. He turned to Admiral June, who stood among the human delegation. But today, we choose a different path. Today, I propose a new galactic accord, one built not on fear, but on equality, one where every species has a voice, and I nominate humanity to lead this new beginning. The chamber erupted in murmurs, but one by one voices rose in agreement. The Ven, the refugees, even species that had once feared humanity. June stepped forward. We did not return to the stars to rule. We returned to prove that what you tried to destroy could never be destroyed. Humanity will not lead this new accord. We will walk beside it. As partners, as equals, the applause that followed was thunderous, and in a medical bay far away, Captain Taiho opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was the face of his friend Heijin, grinning like a fool. Did we win? Taiho asked weakly. Hajan laughed. We did more than win. We changed everything. Outside, the stars shone brighter than they had in 10,000 years. Humanity had finally come home.